standing in front of the copy of the Sea Stallion, an Irish ship that was found in Roskilde Bay. The Vikings were great warriors from the Scandinavia who looted and colonized territories along rivers and coasts in parts of Europe. They were not only good warriors, they were also clever traders and farmers. Their ships were fast and could travel a long distance. In 24 hours, they could easily travel 120 kilometers with an army of 200 ships and 5,000 men. The history of Vikings has had a major influence on the Danish society, which you can see in stores, restaurants, and so on.
Bringing history to life. People in many countries are still sufficiently interested in the Vikings to recreate their way of life as a hobby. Although the Viking Age ended almost 1,000 years ago, the evidence of its existence touches many aspects of our lives. The language has given us many words in everyday use, in English in particular. The trading posts were the origins of some of Europe's towns and cities. Place names and surnames are still recorded where they settled, and their exploits have provided the inspirations for novels and films.
Vikings are frequently featured in cartoons and comics. Perhaps this is an indication of just how deeply they are embedded in our subconscious as well as our culture. Tolkien used his knowledge of Norse mythology when he created his novels, The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Many elements from Viking myths and sagas featured prominently in his stories, including dwarves, runes, magic, fire demons, and even the rings themselves, which were an important part of Viking rituals. Vikings have a strong identity in advertising terms. Their name and many of the images associated with them have been applied to a wide range of products. Rover cars and the AIB Bank are just two of the better known examples in Northern Europe. Other uses include sport teams such as the Minnesota Vikings, an American football team, and the National Air and Space Administration Agency NASA, who used Viking as the name of their project to search for life on Mars.
We went to the Viking Museum in Roskilde to ask the expert Louise Henriksen about Skuldelev 2 and the Sea Stallion's trip to Ireland.
Vi ved, at Skuldelev 2 er bygget i Irland og har taget rejsen fra Dublin til Roskilde. Og det er bygget til at sejle i de angelsaksiske områder, Irland, Skotland og England. Så formålet med at sejle det tilbage til Dublin var at teste vores rekonstruktion, vores havhængst, i de samme farvande, som Skuldelev 2 havde sejlet i for 1000 år siden. Efter Vilhelm Erobreren havde vundet sig i England, så gjorde han den familie, der sad på magten i landet, Godwinson, ud af landet. Og de tog til Irland og forsøgte at samle en flåde, så de kunne tilbageerobre magten. Og de tog på det tidspunkt kontakt til deres onkel, som sad som konge her i Roskilde og hed Svend Estrudsson. Og Svend Estrudsson skulle efter sigende, og ifølge Roskilde-analerne, sendt en flåde med sin bror Asbjørn afsted til England. Så Skuldelev 2 kan jo altså være endt i Roskilde, fordi at Godwinson-familien har sejlet fra Dublin til Roskilde. I slutningen af 700-tallet og starten af 800-tallet, der kommer vikingerne til Irland for første gang. Og det er helt simpelt plyndringstogter. De tager der over om foråret, plyndrer klosterne for guld og gods, tager munkene til fange som slaver og smutter hjem igen.
We went to Dublin to find out more about the Vikings and their influence on the Irish society. We went to Dublinia, a Viking museum in Dublin, to ask expert Sheila Dooley about the influence that the Vikings have had on Dublin.
We're sitting in a city that had one of the results, I suppose, of the Viking raids. Where we are now, in fact, underneath our feet in this very office, is over 1,000 years of history that started with the Vikings. One of their main targets was people. So you'll have seen from the exhibition here, the main target was people, so they took back a lot of slaves. We have some written documentation from the 9th century, 10th century, even earlier sometimes as well, and that describes the number of slaves that have been taken away, or peoples that have been taken away by the Vikings, because it was a very valuable commodity. So there was a huge advantage to taking people, but they also took grain and food as well from the monasteries. If I can be so bold as to use myself as an example, my surname is Dooley. In Irish, that's Dovely. So Dove is Irish for black, and Lee is Irish for warrior. I like to think. But not that I'm a black-haired warrior today, but my name would suggest that I possibly have a lineage that goes back to that era, because Lee is actually the Viking word for warrior. Words in our language today that is from the Vikings. Even the word law or sky or window, these are all words that the Vikings gave us. So in that respect, we have their legacy still carried on today. And then I suppose in the way a city has built and grown up, that legacy in the people and how we, I suppose, think about our past is another legacy too. So everyone who comes to Dublinia learns that the Vikings didn't have horns in their helmets, but the popular imagination, I mean, with regards to running a heritage centre, people love the Vikings. They love everything about them. They love the mystery, the myth, the idea of them.
What comes first to mind when I say Vikings?
I would say very fierce, very cross, great warriors, stole all our women.
Helmets.
Warriors, and coming in, like taking over the town and basically pillaging around.
Invasion.
What kind of influence have Vikings had on your life?
Probably like influence, and probably style-wise.
I don't know. They're really cool. I dressed up as one before for Halloween.
Well, kind of brought them in to be more independent.
The history, isn't it? The history. We were invaded by them in any way, weren't we?
Do you know if the Vikings have had any influence at Ireland?
No. Sorry, I'm rather uneducated on the subject.
I think it's a part of our history now, there. Yeah, it is. It's a good thing, I think, and I think we get visitors all over.
Well, bad influence and good influence. It's brought us to be more independent, but also it's kind of looked on as a bad thing. More violent, more vicious, that kind of thing.
Oh, I think so, yes. I mean, Dublin was a Viking city. It was established by the Vikings. And there's still traces here of Viking settlements. And so, yeah, oh yes, very much so.
If you scream Viking out loud in Dublin, everybody will know what you're talking about. But if you ask the common Irish, it is limited how much they know.
However, most of them know that the Vikings invaded them, but just like the experts say, they came, raided and went back home. But some Vikings settled in Dublin and made it what today is known as a Viking city.
Signs of the Vikings are everywhere. Stones in the pavement with old Viking utensils, paintings on buildings, and even tourist attractions.
1, 2, 3!